I made a fun game for us to play, specifically like relating to the theme of the episode, which is Hollywood.
Okay.
And I wanted to play a true or false game with you.
Okay.
So I'm gonna hide my
Yeah.
answer so you can't see. So I kind of like picked ones that I found online that I think you would know. Anyways, you're gonna have to say true or false to these, and I wrote 16 of them.
Okay, ready.
And we're gonna do it quick.
Okay.
Ready?
Brain's not fully up to speed yet, but ready.
All right. First question. The iconic Hollywood sign originally read Hollywoodland when it was built in 1923.
True.
Yes. Walt Disney's Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, 1937, was the first full-length animated feature film.
Yes.
Yes, true. The longest running TV show in Hollywood is Friends.
False.
Do you know what show it might be?
Grey's Anatomy?
No. Simpsons.
Oh.
The shortest Oscar acceptance speech was given by Jennifer Lawrence, who simply said, "Hi, Mom."
True?
False.
Oh, okay.
It was Alfred Hitchcock who just said, "Thank you." The highest grossing Harry Potter movie is The Goblet of Fire.
False.
Which one do you think it is?
Oh, goodness. I'd say like the last one, probably. Second to last?
Yeah, you were right.
Second to last?
Yeah, Deathly Hallows. Well, you said last.
one.
Deathly Hallows Part 2 is the highest grossing one. The name of the killer from Silence of the Lambs is named Buffalo Sauce.
I've never watched Silence of the Lambs.
You think his name is Buffalo Sauce?
No. Yes. True.
False. It's Buffalo Bill.
Oh.
Jordan Peele directed the 2017 film Get Out.
Yes.
True. The breakfast that Donkey wants to make with Shrek is pancakes.
Yes.
No.
What?
Waffles.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. The first kid who the Oompa Loompa sings about in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is Augustus Gloop.
Oh, goodness. True?
Yes. In The Lion King, Mufasa dies by being trampled by a pack of elephants.
False.
What were they?
What were they? They were like antelope or something, right?
Wildebeests.
Okay.
The first James Bond movie in 1962 created was called Dr. No.
Mm-hmm.
True. The kingdom where Frozen takes place is Gondor.
True.
No.
What was it?
Arendelle.
Uh,
Gondor is from Lord of the Rings.
Oh. I was like, it sounds familiar, so it's true.
Scream was originally called Scary Movie.
Ooh. No. Was it?
Yeah, it was. Isn't that funny?
No. And then all the scary movies are made after like spoofs.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
In The Matrix, the two colored pills that Morpheus gives to Neo to choose from are green and yellow.
False.
What color are they?
I don't know. I've never watched The Matrix.
Red and blue.
Okay.
Red pill, blue pill.
I find The Matrix one of the scariest movies, personally.
Because it's so realistic.
It's just so, I don't like that they're bald. I don't like that they're bald, and I don't like that they're like have all these wires attached to them. It's kind of gross. I just have a memory of like going in when my parents or like my brothers watching it, and I was like, that's just not for me, man.
Can watch just the most terrifying scary movies, but cannot do bald.
Yeah, it freaks me out. I don't know. Okay. I don't know what to say.
30 Pixar animated films have been released to date.
No. 30 Pixar animated films? Only 30? Really?
No, you have to tell me.
False.
Yeah, 28.
What? What? I would have said like in the 50s
well,
at least.
Pixar was something that was created like later after the 2D animated films. Pixar is like a very specific like genre of Disney movies.
Here I am thinking Pixar and Disney are different.
I know.
What?
Well, they are the same. It's Pixar comes from Disney.
I didn't know that.
All right, last question. Quentin Tarantino directed Kill Bill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure, let's go with yes.
Yeah, good job. Okay, so you got 8. You got half right.
Damn.
High five. All right. So that was your Hollywood questionnaire, and you did really good.
Thank you.
I think we're pretty
50%?
well versed. Yeah, 50%. We're pretty well versed in like the Hollywood realm.
You are.
I am.
Whatever.
Yeah.
I love to go on IMDb and look up the backgrounds of all the characters while like I'm watching a show or watching a TV show. But as soon as that show is over, my memory's wiped.
Welcome back to the Wouldn't You Like to Know podcast. I'm Asha.
And I'm Kat.
And today we're going to be unraveling Hollywood and the darker side of Hollywood. I wanted to start it off a little bit lighthearted by doing a little bit of a Hollywood test just to see where you fall. You did pretty well. I don't know if I would get these if you asked me them. I don't know.
I feel like you would do a little better than me at least.
Okay. All right. Maybe I'll have to do another Hollywood test later. So Hollywood and the entertainment industry, especially with film and TV, has always interested me. Like I think my mom and I, like, we share a big love of entertainment and movies and TV. We've always just kind of like connected on that. So it's like a fun thing for me to be interested in. Not only like for the love of the movies, but the fact that there is a darker side in Hollywood that doesn't necessarily like to be shown off. You know, I'm always going to gravitate to the darker side of things.
Yeah.
Right? Like, oh, Hollywood, la la la. But there is a darker side to Hollywood, definitely.
Oh, 100%.
These specific darker topics involve a handful of some of the most iconic women in Western media and their personal struggles on and off set. A lot of these struggles including exploitation, abuse, and mistreatment. So a lot of women who were treated super poorly on the set of movies.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's still happening today, and I feel like it's wonderful that we're hearing more and more women come out and speak about it.
Oh, exactly.
Like Reese Witherspoon, I don't know if you saw even her speech she did at some, I think it was an award ceremony, because she has her own film company now.
Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah. So she made The Morning Show.
Yes.
That has Jennifer Aniston in it. I believe that she's the producer. Her company produced that.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so they have scripts come to them that they like buy and then they produce. And it's all about making movies that are inspiring women or even just show women as actual women. Like representing a woman on their screen that you would see in day-to-day life. And one of her speeches was all about how in every script in Hollywood, that some point there's the line where the woman looks at the man and goes, "Oh, what should we do now?" Have you seen that clip?
Yes, I have seen that clip. What do we do now? And it's always the definitive moment where the man is like, I know what to do. And the woman is helpless and woe is me. Wow.
And Reese was just like, when has a woman ever said that?
To a man.
Or just ever. Like, women are the ones usually who are able to stay calm. Or even in those situations, it's like not even a situation you would need to ask.
Exactly.
But it's just written to scripts because that's how women are painted. And then that's how they're treated on set too. And it's just cool that she's, creating a new...
paving the way a little bit.
Oh, 1,000,000%.
Yeah, no, I really want to watch Morning Show. I've been recommended it a handful of times. So a lot of these struggles that women on set that we're talking about deal with is like exploitation, especially of their age, of their body, abuse, mistreatment, just a lot of like really horrible things. Most of these women experience mental health crises while others suffered at the hands of abusive directors, producers, and co-stars. Mostly men, of course. It's not a secret that this abuse and mistreatment has been in Hollywood for decades. The amount of abuse and power that so many showrunners have over these women is astronomical, especially a lot of these women being so young when they first broke out into stardom.
Yeah.
Like there's so many stories, especially like there was that documentary that came out about the Disney stars and that one specific producer.
Jeanette, thinking about iCarly. I'm thinking about iCarly.
You're thinking, but there's same kind of like universe, but it's this one guy who was just like making the younger children in these like Nickelodeon or Disney shows.
I'm pretty sure it was the same guy. I think the same guy you're talking about was the same guy on iCarly.
Yeah.
And it was the brother in iCarly. There's videos and clips of him protecting the like younger female cast members
because he knew what this guy was doing.
Because he would like hug them and like touch them inappropriately.
There's a lot of like foot jokes and like feet stuff that was going on.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. really nasty. But like a lot of these young actresses being exposed to these really nasty situations and circumstances because they're young, because they're breaking out into the industry, and they don't really have any other chance or any other choice, right?
Oh, they're unprotected.
Exactly. Too. I have a few actresses whose life stories I do want to talk about. There are, like, just to preface, there are a lot of actresses, like more than I could probably count on my hands, of actresses in Hollywood who have been exploited and have been mistreated, especially women of color, LGBTQ actresses and actors. But I do kind of want to focus more on actresses in like the past, kind of like in the 70s and 80s. Some actresses whose movies I really enjoy. So the first one being Linda Blair. I don't know if you've heard much about this, but...
What movies is Linda Blair in?
So she was the actress from the movie The Exorcist, which came out in 1937. And she played Reagan, which was the young possessed girl in the movie. The Exorcist made her a household name. It was like a super defining moment in her career. She was only 12 when she was cast in The Exorcist. Yeah. But the production itself was incredibly grueling and led to a series of physical, emotional, and psychological struggles that would eventually go on to haunt her for years, just as a 12-year-old.
Yeah.
Her role would require her to perform some physically demanding and honestly, like, really disturbing scenes. A lot of sources online note that the nature of the film's horror and Reagan's possession involved some of the most intense and physically taxing scenes to ever be on film. So an example of one of these scenes was the spider walk. I actually watched The Exorcist for the first time in October with my mom. It was really good, but definitely, like, I could tell that it was a bit much for its time. The movie was just a bit, like, it wasn't scary nowadays just compared to all the other scary movies that are going on, but it definitely was disturbing, you know. So the spider walk was one of the most iconic moments in the movie, where she performs this creepy spider-like walk down the staircase in an unnatural way. It's kind of creepy.
I feel like I've seen clips of that.
You definitely have. The stunt required Linda to contort her body in a way that was super uncomfortable, and she eventually later revealed that she was strapped into a harness that forced her to hold that position. With the dawn of CGI still decades off, this challenge of bringing the director's horrific vision to life was a very physical task. And Blair's stunt double, Eileen Dietz, who was supposed to stand in for the child's most taxing scenes, ended up on screen for less than 20 seconds, with the director wanting Blair to shoulder the burden instead.
Wow.
Like, just wanting the actress to be the one to do all of these scenes, which is insane. Like, what? Yeah. That's the job of stunt doubles and body doubles, is to take that burden off of these actors and actresses, right? Billy Friedkin came to me before we were filming and said, "If you do not do all of this film, the film will be a joke," Blair recalled. The bedroom on set, where she spent the majority of her days, was kept to a glacial 0 degrees so that the breath of anyone entering could leave a ghostly trail in the air. While others were given heavy coats and thick knits, Blair endured the cold in only like a thin nightgown.
Wow.
Yeah. Similarly, these 2 hours she spent in a makeup chair every morning were tolerated without complaint. Even when, as she recalled years later, the makeup proved so caustic that it burned her face. You'll recall that Blair spends a good chunk of The Exorcist in spasms of fury, her limp body at the whim of a crew member tugging the ropes of her harness. Watching the film back now, and the violence of her thrashing and jerking, it's definitely like little wonder that Blair suffered a spinal injury.
She suffered a spinal injury.
A fracture in her back developed to scoliosis, leaving her in chronic pain for years.
Oh my god.
Yeah, the scenes of her like thrashing around the bed were insane, like very violent thrashing. The back injury was far more serious than I ever imagined, and it really affected my health negatively for a long time, Blair later said. For his part, Friedkin has acknowledged the dangers of his set, physical and otherwise. It was only by the grace of God that nobody was injured or killed in those pictures, he said. The Exorcist was threatening the sanity of that wonderful 12-year-old girl. This was the director.
So the one that's putting her in this position.
Yeah, so I think he kind of later understood the damage that it did.
That's good.
Yeah.
At least.
If the film itself did not do damage, the resulting media attention definitely did. It was an instant, if controversial, hit. There was a lot of like controversies about the movie. Talking to my mom about this movie and like when it came out, she remembered that people were like leaving the theater halfway through, like throwing up. It was just like something that people hadn't really experienced, that like it was like such a visceral horror. It's a pretty gnarly script, definitely. But unsurprisingly, the film attracted huge religious attention, and Blair was accused of glorifying Satan. Influential Christian evangelists declared the movie to be tainted by the devil himself, but Blair would go on to recall the death threats she received and how people would heckle her in the streets. "Police were hired to live at my house," she said. "A bodyguard was enlisted by the movie studio to protect Blair. What they couldn't protect her from, however, was the media." Shuttled around the world on a press tour, she became the face of The Exorcist. Blair, then 14, was intensely questioned about faith, God, the devil, evil, the state of religion. 14 years old. Imagine just being asked those questions.
I couldn't answer those questions now.
No, it's such a specific thing, and people wanted these answers.
Wow.
When the movie came out, the amount of pressure that came down on me wasn't anything I was prepared for, she said. Especially all the pressure the press put on me. They thought I had all the answers about faith and Catholicism. It was probably the most awful thing you could imagine.
That's ridiculous.
But so, like, leading up to that, or I guess like afterwards, after all this press attention and the grueling set, on December 20th, 1977, at 18 years old, she was arrested for drug possession and conspiracy to sell drugs. She pleaded guilty to a reduced charge of conspiracy to possess cocaine in exchange for 3 years probation. She was also required to make at least 12 major public appearances to tell young people about the dangers of drug abuse. So I would assume that like the years of filming The Exorcist and just how much she was put through definitely took a toll on her mental state, and just the way that she probably felt about herself and the way that she felt about life. And it makes sense that like getting into drugs and alcohol, especially in the industry, is something that is like pretty easily accessible.
Yeah, well, drugs are very accessible.
But a happy ending to the story is now that Lisa runs a foundation that helps rehabilitate and rehome and adopt rescued animals. So she's doing okay. Actually, she was in the new Exorcist movie that I saw in theater. So she is a little bit in the media, but I think she's just kind of doing her own thing now, which is good. Shelley Duvall is another actress whose career was overshadowed by personal trauma and abuse, much of it stemming from her experience in Hollywood. While Duvall had a successful acting career in the 1970s and 1980s, she is perhaps the best known for her role in Stanley Kubrick's The Shining.
Right. Okay. I've heard a tiny bit about this. You've like mentioned it before.
Where she faced extreme mistreatment that deeply affected her mental health. Director Stanley Kubrick, known for his perfectionism and demanding nature, put Duvall through some grueling and emotionally damaging processes during the making of the film. Duvall played Wendy Torrance, the wife of Jack Torrance, who was played by Jack Nicholson in the film, and her character was subjected to intense emotional and physical stresses throughout the film. Because of Kubrick's methodical nature, the film took a couple years to complete, and the script was changed like so often that Duvall and Nicholson stopped reading each draft. It was just constantly being updated and updated. Kubrick antagonized his actors, and Shelley Duvall and Kubrick argued frequently. His treatment of Duvall on set had been described as nothing short of abusive. In interviews, Duvall herself had said that Kubrick pushed her to the breaking point, often belittling her and using harsh tactics to get the performance he wanted from her. One of the most famous examples of this was a scene where Duvall had to cry for an extended period, but Kubrick kept pushing her and demanding take after take, which led to her becoming just drained.
Well, obviously. I mean, we've talked about this in our 2 episodes
Your brain
ago.
can't tell the difference between something that's real and something that's not half the time, especially when you're forced to cry and forced to show that side of you. Duvall was reportedly isolated on set and treated with contempt by Kubrick. She was often pushed to the point of exhaustion, and he allegedly made cruel comments to her to instill fear and anxiety, including harsh criticisms of her acting abilities.
Wow.
The extreme stress took a toll on Duvall's mental and physical health, and many observers have pointed out that her visibly strained performance in The Shining was a result of the abuse she had endured during the film.
Do you think he did it on purpose?
Oh, 100%. I think it was definitely a tactic for him to get like the perfect shot.
It's like almost like forcing somebody into method acting.
100%.
Wow.
Following The Shining, Duvall's career was never the same. She starred in several smaller films but gradually disappeared from the limelight. Her mental health began to deteriorate further, and she reportedly withdrew from public life. In 2002, Duvall's reclusive lifestyle became a subject of public concern when she appeared on Dr. Phil in a highly disturbing interview, where she exhibited signs of significant mental distress. She seemed disconnected and confused, and it was clear that her years of emotional trauma had taken a serious toll on her, which is so upsetting.
This is just when people were able to like really see that she wasn't doing well.
Yeah.
Wow.
Duvall's experience is often cited as an example of how Hollywood can cause long-term damage to actresses. Yes, particularly those who are subject to abusive working conditions. Her story highlights the darker side of the film's industry, where the demands of directors and the pressure of stardom can sometimes lead to lasting psychological damage. I feel like oftentimes lead to psychological damage.
Yeah.
So Shelley passed away this year on July 11th, 2024, due to complications from diabetes in her home. She was like quite old. Several tributes were posted to Duvall, including messages from Stephen King and the Stanley Kubrick estate. So it's, really sad, but I'm glad that she was able to kind of live a bit of a longer life and out of the limelight, which is good. I think
that's what she needed. But
yeah.
You do need to take such precaution when filming horror movies with the actors, especially with children.
Yes.
I remember seeing Insidious behind the scenes videos of that actor that's in that black and red mask kind of thing that's like in the background of a couple shots.
Yeah, the creepy guy.
Yeah, they would have him just like laughing and joking with the kids. They would watch him get the makeup put on, kind of just to like really see it's not real. And that really made me feel, okay, whoa, yeah, it would be terrifying. It's terrifying to watch it on the TV. Of course it's going to be terrifying to film. And those people are children.
Yeah.
They're literal children.
Exactly. Similar to filming It.
Yeah.
With like Pennywise.
Yeah.
I think they kind of purposely had Bill Skarsgård, who played Pennywise, separate from the kids, as to not like interact with each other, so that the fear was like genuine from the kids.
Oh, so the opposite of what
I
was just saying.
Yeah.
See, that's not cool with me. Like, I just think, I mean, they're kids, but trust that they can act. Don't put kids in like real trauma experiences, because that stuff lasts, and you're not even going to know it's lasting until years down the line. Yeah.
Another iconic and tragic figure, which you know about, is Judy Garland. She was known for her incredible talent and role as Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz. I think Wizard of Oz is kind of in the zeitgeist right now because of Wicked.
Yeah,
so
totally.
I definitely wanted to point her out. Garland's career was impaired by years of exploitation, abuse, manipulation at the hands of the Hollywood system. From a very young age, she was subjected to mistreatment by studio executives who saw her as a commodity rather than a person. And her life was marked by mental health struggles, substance abuse, and personal tragedies. She was signed to MGM at the age of 13, and her career was closely controlled by the studio. She appeared in her first movie at the age of 14 called Pigskin Parade, which was a comedy about football coaches.
That sounds like a horror movie to me.
It does, doesn't it? Studio head Louis Mayer at the MGM and the bosses were reportedly worried about extra weight that Garland supposedly had, going so far to call her as a fat little pig with pigtails, which is just a horrible thing to say to a 14-year-old.
Oh my God, she was 14?
Yep.
Wow.
Placed on what would be the first of many diets, Garland's food intake was crazy restricted and monitored at only 14.
Wow.
Louis Mayer insisting she consume only chicken soup, black coffee, and cigarettes, along with appetite suppressants.
What the? She's 14!
Yeah.
And you're recommending she has cigarettes and black coffee?
Yeah.
Oh my God. I can't even have that. At 25, I couldn't. I'd be dead tomorrow if I had cigarettes and a black coffee. My body would just shut down.
Most of her teen and adult life, she had been on either Benzedrine or a diet or both. Garland's third husband, Sid Luft, wrote in his memoir, Judy and I, My Life with Judy Garland. Known as pep pills in the industry, she wasn't alone in being forced to take these uppers. They had us working days and nights on end. They'd give us pills to keep us on our feet long after we were exhausted. Then they'd take us to the studio hospital and knock us out with sleeping pills. Mickey, her co-star, sprawled out on one bed and me on another, Garland told biographer Paul Donnelly. Then after 4 hours, they'd wake us up and give us the pep pills again so we could work 72 hours in a row. Half the time we were hanging from the ceiling, but it was a way of life for us.
Oh my God.
Just
that's like
workhorses.
And it's sleep deprivation.
Which, you know, can cause some crazy, crazy things to happen.
Yeah.
A year prior to The Wizard of Oz, studio managers were sending memos to each other detailing Garland's food intake. By the time cameras began rolling in the film, Garland was already in an upper-downer drug cycle. At the age 17, being a fresh teenager heading to early womanhood and beginning to film The Wizard of Oz, studio execs, to ensure Dorothy's wholesome young appearance wouldn't be questioned by the audience, resorted to strapping her breasts down and utilizing corsets to evoke a slim silhouette on top of a steady diet of drugs and very little food.
Oh my God.
And they used that like blue pattern, you know, on Dorothy's dress as a way to kind of blur her figure for the cameras.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So are you saying that she got this role at age 14, but she didn't begin filming until age 17?
No. So she started acting when she was 14, and she got the role of working on Wizard of Oz when she was 17.
Got it.
So She was just becoming like a proper woman, heading into early womanhood and dealing with what comes with growing and your body changing and all of these things happening to you. But the studio was limiting that. They wanted her to look youthful and wholesome, and they were, just taping her boobs down and shrinking her waist and just making it a completely uncomfortable situation for her.
Wow.
Yo-yo dieting, which is like the up and down of, restricting and giving more and restricting, and reliance on pills was now so firmly cemented that she struggled with both, along with very heavy alcohol consumption for the rest of her life.
Age 17.
Yeah. By the 1950s, Garland's career began to decline due to health problems, mental instability, and continuing struggles with substance abuse. Despite this, she managed to have some comeback moments, including a highly successful concert career and a celebrated appearance in A Star is Born in 1954. However, her personal demons were too great to overcome, and Garland passed away from an accidental overdose in 1969 at the age of 47. Yeah. The tragedies of her short life often overshadow her artistic legacy. 5 marriages and 3 children, Liza Minnelli and Lorna and Joey Luft. Garland's tragic story is often seen as a cautionary tale of how the Hollywood system took advantage of how its stars, especially young women, exploited their vulnerabilities. Her career was manipulated by powerful men in the industry, and she was forced to sacrifice her health, sanity, and personal happiness for the sake of stardom. Both Linda Blair, Judy Garland, and Shelley Duvall's stories underscore the darker side of Hollywood and the exploitation that many actresses endured in the pursuit of fame. While their careers were marked by tremendous talent, and although each of their lives were so different, they were marred by the emotional, psychological, and physical tolls that came from the industry's treatment. Both women's stories have contributed to the ongoing conversation about mental health, abuse, and the need for better protections for actors and the others working in the entertainment industry. So yeah, those were a few stories of women in Hollywood that I kind of wanted to share, whose lives were just turned upside down during filming and pushed to the limits, especially by the studio executives. Yeah, it's just really sad.
It is, but I feel like it seems to be getting better over the years, because I feel like there's more women speaking out and advocating for their treatment.
Yeah.
So I think hopefully it's heading in the right direction.
Yeah. So 6 years after the Me Too hashtag took off with the exposés against Harvey Weinstein, A new survey found that a promising number of employees in the entertainment industry feel progress has been made in Hollywood.
That's amazing.
WIF, which is Women in Film, the nonprofit organization, conducted a survey last month where the majority of the respondents said that the culture in Hollywood has improved.
That's good.
It has been just over 7 years since the Me Too movement gained traction and accusations against harmful men continue to come out. It's a long road ahead, but the fact that we're still having these conversations means there's hope. So let's keep pushing for progress and let's keep supporting women, not just in Hollywood, but everywhere.
Yeah.
Here, here.
Here, here. Having the conversation is all we can do, really.
Yeah.
And continuing to advocate for equal pay, even though it is, you know, it's frowned upon or seen as, like, I guess, disrespectful or not classy to ask what your coworkers are making. But it's hard stuff to do.
It is.
So I think carrying on the Hollywood conversation, something that really stuck out to me was that these people, specifically women, but people in Hollywood, they're in quite a vulnerable situation and environment, because it is really who you know and if they like you. And that really determines if you get the next role, because we see that on our screens today. You don't see a bajillion lead actors and actresses. You see the select A-listers, and then you see them repeating roles after roles after roles.
Because they know the right person.
Because, yeah, they built up a reputation, and they or their family is in, like, the media or the entertainment industry, so they have been able to, you know, Jennifer Lawrence, wonderful person. I think she's a wonderful actress, but she plays a lot of lead roles in Hollywood. And that's just an example of how important it is to, really make it and keep a good reputation. And that does come from directors and producers liking you and liking to work with you.
Exactly.
So that's where you get people put in these very vulnerable situations. They're not in the most comfortable environments. They're sleep deprived. They're on different schedules, so maybe they can't hold the same social connections that they could in another 9-to-5 job. They are put around a lot of drugs and partying, kind of seem like you kind of have to do that to fit in, to make it up, make it higher in that world. And all of these things kind of leave you vulnerable to entering a cult.
Oh.
Yeah.
Hollywood cults.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because in those vulnerable, sleep-deprived, and drug-induced brains and mindsets, you really have to put a solid effort into your mental health and to think straight to make sure you're not being manipulated.
Right, because you could fall into conversation with the wrong person and be introduced to a group of people and a bigger group of people. And you might not actually know that that's, you're being indicted into something that is, like, going to be super harmful to you.
Exactly. So as I was kind of looking into this, I mean, we know the big cults, like the Manson cult, and we know, like, Scientology, and, you know, a couple of people who are on our screens today and in an upcoming movie who have been rumored to be in the Scientology cult.
Yep.
Or I don't even know if they identify as a cult.
A religion.
Religion.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy. I've actually walked past a Scientology storefront, and it was like, wait, this is real? This isn't just something on the internet you read? And it was like inviting you in to watch a video or whatever, or watch a movie they were screening. And I was like, I could just go. I'm strong enough. But
they would ask you to sign the 1 billion year contract.
I mean, but then I just wouldn't, right? So that's what you think. That's what you think. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about, is how, when we think of cults, we think, well, I wouldn't join a cult.
Yeah.
I'm smarter than that. I wouldn't sign a 1 billion year contract.
No, never.
I wouldn't sign a false confession. I would make the right choice. You always, hey. You always have a choice.
You always have a choice.
But do you?
But do you?
So that's kind of what I want us all to think about, is what would you do if you were in the same situation? I have an older sister So I watched the TV shows that maybe like you didn't watch growing up. Like watched One Tree Hill
I never
and
watched
90210.
Didn't watch those
I watched
shows.
Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I watched Veronica Mars. Like all the shows that my sister, who's a decade plus older than me, watched. Because I'm her sister. I need to watch everything that she's watching, obviously. So one of the main characters of One Tree Hill, her name is Haley James Scott. One Tree Hill was a popular TV series similar to like 90210 or Gossip Girl kind of thing. And it was on TV for 10 years. So it was incredibly popular. The actress's name is Bethany Joy Lenz, and she was in a cult.
Oh.
For the entire time she was on this TV show, she was in a cult. Yeah.
What was this called?
She was in the Big House family is what she calls it, but there's other names people hypothesize it is. But she calls it the Big House family cult.
We're all big. Well, we live in one big house and we're all family in this cult.
Yeah, that's not a cult. We just live in all one big house.
It's just a family.
So basically how this started was she moved away from her family to go on to start acting.
Okay.
Yeah. And she grew up in a Protestant family, so a religious family. And it was quite common that they would do Bible study on Wednesdays, stuff like that. And as she's, on her own and she's seeking a sense of community and she's obviously dealing with fame and difficult hours and growing up in general, she joined a few women, actually, who had decided to just meet and read the Bible. So they just did their own little Bible study.
Yeah, pretty inconspicuous. I feel like a lot of people do that with like book clubs and all that kind of stuff.
And it was kind of treated like that. It was kind of treated, she describes it now, as therapy-ish.
That makes sense. Like a group of ladies just talking to each other and discussing. Yeah. From my point of view, would be very inconspicuous.
That's exactly what I thought. I thought, that's if you grew up religious and you like reading the Bible and then you want to discuss that with other like-minded women similar to your age and kind of really maybe discuss some things you're having a hard time in your life with, that's kind of what they would do every week. And it gave her this, I guess as she describes it, routine.
Yeah. Routine.
And it was all fine until there was a priest who decided to join and kind of take up the role as their leader.
So a male priest?
Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure if it was all women at this point. I think it all started out as all women, but they were all artists. So like-minded people kind of dealing with the same things she was dealing with. So it was really helpful for her in the time that she was in. And so when the leader joined, this is kind of when it started to take a turn for the worst. Very slowly, though. So it started that they would kind of isolate her from her loved ones, would build her up about her acting, but then tear her down as well, would kind of say what roles she shouldn't take or should take. They ended up, like most cults, creating a secondary business under another name to funnel money into, and this was a investment,
like a front.
A front, but they were like, it's an actual business. This is a legitimate financial like investment business. So we'll take your money and we'll invest it and it'll grow and then it'll help the church or the group. Okay. The big family house. And to show your allegiance, you will of course give us your money, of course. And she's on a hit TV series for almost 10 years. She's making loads of money, but she's broke.
Because all her money's being funneled in to this business.
Because they just keep asking for more and more money.
Wow.
And it's seen as a display of trust or a display of, allegiance.
Loyalty.
Yeah, 100%. So it's really shamed if she wasn't to give it to them. And she's like, why do you need it? Like, you have us and we'll take care of you.
You're a big movie star. At least you have some money to,
she's giving it basically all to them. And she says that she spent and lost about $2 million at least.
Holy crap.
At least in the beginning. After, she's isolated from her loved ones, it's kind of in a way that the leader will bring her into a room and be like, yeah, like I got an email from your mom. She's asking all these questions, like what's going on? Like, yeah, and like why is she asking all these questions? And then Bethany, the woman, she's put in the situation where she's like, I'm so sorry she's doing that. Like, that's so annoying. She just doesn't understand. And he's like, don't worry, like I'll deal with her. Do you want to see it? Blah, blah, blah. And she's like, no, I don't need to see it. It'll just make me angry. And he's like, yeah, and I've been dealing with your dad too. Like he's messaging me too. And she's like, oh, I'm so sorry. Thank you so much for, really handling all of this and taking that burden away from me where you're communicating with them. Like, thank you so much. So whether or not that's true that they were talking to the priest or not, or if he's just kind of telling her this to make it seem like he's, being this protector, this father figure, this amazing guy who's really supporting her and her views and everything. But she's totally in that mindset where she's just thinking it's totally fine. Mm-hmm. And he's doing, her a favor when really he's isolating her further from her loved ones.
Yeah, that's usually how it is with cult leaders, is the isolation.
So 2005, she marries his son.
Oh.
Yep.
Okay.
Doesn't love him, is not romantically interested in him, but she says that she didn't really have a good, I guess, example of a healthy relationship growing up. Her parents were divorced. She was see things on TV, and she hadn't really had healthy relationships in her past. She was quite young still. So she's like, maybe this is like what it is. It's just, you're supposed to do it for like the good of the church and the good of the community and stuff like that. And so they were married in 2005.
Was it like an arranged marriage in a sense?
It's so
she had no connection to him or didn't love him or like,
well, they were in this community together, right? They're in this ultra Christian community together, but she's at this point been in the cult a while, obviously does not know it's a cult, and they've really whittled her down and her confidence down and her beliefs down. She's in a mode where she doesn't feel like she can trust anybody but the people in it. They just completely manipulated her to a point where she was made to feel like she had to do everything perfectly by these set of rules that this man laid out in order to be a good person, in order to be like a God-loving person. And if you weren't anything but that, then you were a horrible person.
Right.
And so that's really why religion can get so scary, because they do put that pressure on you that you need to be perfect. And without sin is just, I mean, I've grown up in a religious background, and I know that like sin can be used in a multitude of different ways, but it's just so intense in my mind to call somebody a sinner. It's almost like it's just the repercussions that you're putting behind that word are so hefty, and to put it on a young mind who's feeling isolated from their loved ones, they're feeling confused, they're feeling really whittled down in terms of their confidence. It's just, you really can control them at that point. Right. So she says it wasn't an arranged marriage. She did make the choice ultimately, but at what point do you not have another choice? Mm-hmm. And is it coercion?
Yeah. Coercion. Yes.
So she marries him, and at one point she's put on a sex schedule with him.
Holy.
Because she doesn't want to have sex with him. She's not romantically interested in him or at all. She's traveling for work to go film One Tree Hill. And so she's having time away from him, which is nice. But when she gets back, she has to immediately go on the sex schedule, which is inevitably when they have their child. So they have their child, I believe, in 2011. They're married from 2005 to 2012. So she has her kid at the end of that. And when she had her daughter, that's when she realizes, I need to get out. She knew she needed to get out for a while, but she didn't really see a way out or how to get out. And it was really then that she was like, okay, this is important.
Wow.
And it was actually a One Tree Hill fan who had joined the group, the cult, but was such a strong woman, had such a strong mind. The leader kind of put her at arm's length, this other woman, this fan, and was like, okay, I'm just going to leave you over there because you're really strong and I can't deal with you.
Strong. Yeah.
Which Bethany then goes to say that was the worst thing he could have done for her because it just meant that she could see everything that was happening, but she wasn't being manipulated to the same extent.
Right.
So when the time came that Bethany wanted to leave and other members wanted to leave, it was actually this woman that really helped her leave.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's because good that she had someone.
Yeah. Yeah. And she also says that it was being able to be in One Tree Hill and also film in general, be an actress. She was away from the house for extended periods of time and was able to be given that clarity. And her One Tree Hill castmates fully knew she was in a cult and would say it, but she was so delusional and she was so in it and she was married into it that she couldn't get out of, she couldn't even begin to conceptualize that it was what they were saying. Mm-hmm. And even though they did offer help, she just was like, no, it's fine. It's not like that. Don't worry. Even though she really was struggling. Right. Because she was so ingrained in it and she didn't want to lose custody of her child, or really she didn't have a ton of money. So she didn't really have anywhere else to go.
It was like a sense of family or like a perverse sense of comfort.
She also was made to feel like she couldn't trust anybody else. That's what they do in cults. And so she had a really hard time even being like talking to people and being open to what they would say, even if she kind of knew in the back of her head that it really wasn't good. So this is one of the specific examples of a person in Hollywood who's in a cult. There's also a cult that is quite popular that had a lot of Hollywood stars in it called NXIVM. Like
the letters?
Yeah.
Oh.
I don't know if you've heard about it at all. The leader of the cult is now in prison. Thank goodness. 120 years. He would brand women with his initials on their pelvis. Oh. He started a cult with this is not the same cult. This is a different one. He started a kind of a group within the cult that was called DOS, which had it was a Latin acronym, but it basically meant women are to be below men, and it was effectively a sex trafficking ring, and women were made to sign this thing that they were to be, slaves to their master. They had to be on call 24/7, and they had to respond to their master, even a text, within 60 seconds of receiving that text, or they would be starved, and then go have sex with them. And men had multiple women, and these women were just...
Was he getting them pregnant at all?
I'm not sure about this one specifically. This one I kind of found at the tail end of looking into Bethany's story. Mm-hmm. And the reason was because she watched, there's a series that's out called The Vow, I believe. But she said watching this, a lot of the things that were shown, she could relate to.
Wait, so this cult, who was the star that was in this cult? Or
NXIVM?
Yeah.
I feel like there's a way to say that, and I just don't know. Not anybody that I personally knew very well. I don't know if you know the TV series Smallville.
Yeah, I knew that.
Allison Mack.
Okay.
So she was one of the actresses in Smallville, and so she was arrested for racketeering, which is just like illegal business activity. And then
so she was part of
part of it, yeah.
Okay.
But then he was arrested for sex trafficking, racketeering, and some other things.
So this was a cult in Hollywood?
It was a cult that, had a lot of stars
Okay.
in it. Yeah. And then as I'm researching this, I also decide to start listening to an old podcast that I had enjoyed in the past called Something Was Wrong. And it's basically the format of this podcast is it goes in seasons, and each season it's led by a woman, and she dives into a story for multiple episodes of the season of somebody. So it can be anything from domestic abuse, or the one I just started listening to was the People's Temple. Do you know the People's Temple?
No, I don't think so.
That's the Jonestown Massacre.
Oh.
The Kool-Aid.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So it follows a gentleman who got out.
Wow.
Yeah. And I won't go into the Jonestown Massacre really that much because that's not Hollywood. But as she's talking about cults and talking about, the People's Temple cult, she brings some really interesting points up about how a lot of people always think, I would never be in a cult. I could never do that. And it's just, you really take yourself out of it. And when these documentaries focus on the leader and all these crazy things these people do and they're coerced into, you think, oh, of course I would never do that. But they don't dive into the beginning and personal individual stories of the participants,
right,
and the ones that are being manipulated. So they don't show you just how normal these people are, that they're from all levels of education, all levels of income. Like these aren't just people who are in poverty or who are lowly educated or who have had something really traumatic happen. It can be anybody off the street who just walks into the wrong room. You just have no idea how good people are at manipulating others.
Yeah.
It's insane. So in Bethany's situation, what do you think you would have done? Because it just was a little Bible group at the beginning.
Yeah. I mean, if I had no understanding of cults and knowledge of kind of what to look out for, if I wasn't in my position now, and if I was someone who, needed a little bit of a sense of community and a sense of friendship, I don't think I would notice the tells and the signs of the fact that this group is becoming a little bit more than I signed up for.
But she had a great family.
Yeah.
She had loved ones. She had phenomenal co-stars.
Right.
Who really looked out for her.
She had a lot of people around her.
But it still happened.
And it's, yeah.
Yeah. Even Dancing with the Devil, that Netflix documentary about the TikTok dancers. Those people had great families who were there.
Yeah.
Still somehow entered a cult. And it's just, it made me think really differently about cult members. And I think I always had empathy for cult members, of course, but I was like, yeah, you have to be really careful on, I never went into that Scientology storefront, but I was definitely tempted.
Do you think you were tempted because you wanted to test yourself to see how good you were at avoiding their introductions?
Like McCamey Manor.
Yeah.
Vibe.
You kind of wanted to prove to yourself how you could be like, I'm never get indicted to a cult, kind of just see what they had to say.
In a cocky
way? Yeah.
I mean,
because that's probably what I would do, if we were on the street and we walked by.
I mean, yeah.
But I also don't want to dance with the devil. I don't want to put myself in a situation or something.
I like to think I'm an incredibly open-minded person.
You are.
I try to think of myself as somebody who can enter that conversation and really go in with the mindset, hear them out, because you don't know what you don't know until you know it.
Yeah.
And so they have that opinion. just like you have your own opinion and they have it for a reason, just like you do. So why can't I hear them out?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's good, but it does lead me to being vulnerable to listening to the wrong person.
Yes.
And something that Bethany talks about, because somebody says, well, like, what are the signs that you're in a cult? And it's when you really start to distrust others to the point that you don't feel like you can enter a conversation with somebody who has differing opinions than you, and you're not strong enough not to completely sway your opinion. Like when the cult has made you think you can't even listen to people who have potentially have a different opinion than you, than the group has. And then he talks about how it was really difficult for her to come forward and talk about this so openly.
Yeah.
And be so vulnerable, because it is embarrassing. You do have a lot of shame. She said she was a single mother living, like, who's basically broke after being on a 9-year hit TV series.
You would expect to have a little bit of a different life after being in the, in the media, but
of course, and people expect that of her.
Wow.
I think it's just so brave that she was able to tell her story and show people that people they look up to can also be misled when you're entering seemingly an innocent situation. She still sees these things as choices when really she didn't have other choices.
No, I think they make it seem that you have a lot of choices with your life and you have a lot of options. Like, oh, you're able to go to the grocery store and get your own food. We're not restricting you, or we're not restricting your sleep, or all this kind of stuff. So they make it seem like you have these choices and you have these options. But I think in reality, your choices, your life choices, are just completely cut off,
Oh, yeah.
because of just the walls that have been put up. I think that, like, the whole of Hollywood is kind of like similar to a cult, almost like you're thrown into it, especially as like a young actor. You're not really given much of a choice. You're kind of forced to do these certain things, especially by people who have power over you. Whether or not you have support from family or not is like up in the air, and you're just kind of dangled a piece of cheese over like a string of you're going to get famous, you're going to have lots of money, you're going to be in the limelight. So I think a lot of these cults is like the idea that you're promised something good, better than what you have. And in order to get it, you have to do A, B, and C, push your family away. You have to do a lot of research, or like, I guess read the Bible. You have to get to know these people. You have to conform and change who you are.
Yeah.
I think it's really scary. And I don't think I have any advice of what to tell people, not to do to get into a cult, because like you were saying, it's really easy to slip into something that looks like a cult, or it's easy to slip into a group of people that seem really sweet, that seem really inviting.
I think the biggest thing learning about all of this is, how easy, exactly as you said, how easy it really is, and how much more empathy I think we and the media could have for cult members, because I really think they're shown in this light that they're not fully stable, or they're ignorant, and therefore they fall into this. And I think it's just so important to think, what choice did they have? And what would you have done in that situation?
Well, that is all for today's episode, folks. Thank you so much for joining us as we unravel the wild and chaotic and very unfair dark side of Hollywood, right? Oh, don't forget to subscribe.
And leave a review.
Leave a little review. Tell us what you think.
Or a comment.
Yes.
Of a cult that you would like to join.
Let's keep the conversations going. Let's keep fighting the good fight. We'll see you next week, hopefully with some more good news about how women are changing the game, or how cults are being shut down. Because wouldn't you like to know?
I would.
I would.
And you should too.